All right, guys, Jacqueline Fernandez here from the WWT Alert Center. Thank you so much for joining me again this afternoon, making sure my levels are good. I appear to be audio ready, so that's a good thing. Today, as we discussed or as I pushed out in our push alerts and whatnot, we're talking about Human DNA Identification Lab at UNMC gaining new accreditation, and this is a big deal. So you can kind of imagine, being able to solve cold cases in Omaha now. So that's huge, and this could be the new reality thanks to this lab. So joining us now to talk about this is Melissa Heligso. Melissa, good morning. Thanks for joining us, or rather, good afternoon, I should say.
Good morning.
So let us know, you've taken part in hundreds of forensic investigations. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience has been like for you?
Well, I've been doing this for almost 25 years now, so I've seen a lot of change in our field. It's been a really exciting career. I have to say that it's never boring and there's always something new and I'm always learning something new. So it keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, I bet. My goodness, I can only imagine. Talk to us a little bit about this UNMC accreditation. First of all, why is that important to be accredited?
Accreditation is important, mainly I would say for trial purposes, but also just for the community at large to be comfortable with the fact that we are audited on a yearly basis to ensure that we are following about 600 to 700 rules that you must follow in order to be accredited. So we are accredited by ANAB, ISO, and the FBI QAS, which ends up being a lot of rules, but that way we can ensure accuracy.
Yeah, and that is so important, right? So people know that you're not fooling around. This is serious.
Right.
Okay, perfect. All right, so this is one of 6 labs in the country, right, that has this accreditation?
Right. I believe there's actually 7 now, but yes.
Okay. So that doesn't seem like a high number, especially for the United States. Can you kind of talk to that unique aspect about this?
Sure. This is kind of a brand new technology. It started with the Golden State Killer back a few years ago. They were able to identify that gentleman who had been terrorizing the West Coast for about 20 years. And it was super exciting to see how they sort of put that all together. So from that, a couple of vendors within our field put together an assay or a test that we could run in forensic DNA laboratories. And we are just one of the first laboratories to be able to get that up and running.
Awesome. Okay. And then can you explain to us in, I guess, layman's terms, like how this new technology will enable us to help law enforcement? Like, let's say there's a cold case here in Omaha and you want to work directly, with police on this. What does that process look like?
Sure. So our laboratory has always worked very closely with the homicide unit here in Omaha, with the Omaha Police. So a lot of these cases I actually tested originally back when they happened in the early 2000s or around there. Basically what we're doing is we're taking DNA samples that have already been tested. They are in CODIS, which is the national database, and they don't have a hit, meaning that they don't know who these people are. We're taking those samples and we're performing new testing on them and gleaning kind of different information from the DNA. So this type of testing enables us to identify families, and there are 2 databases that allow law enforcement to access them in order to be able to build this information. And so we access those 2 different databases, and then there are people in those databases who have agreed to allow law enforcement to use their DNA in order to help solve violent crimes. And then we try to see if we can identify who the evidence belongs to.
So I have a question for you. Do these DNA samples ever go bad, so to speak, or are they just kind of kept, in this room and not really messed with, and so you can access them from years and years ago?
So like I said, all of these cases have already been tested. So we do still have DNA extracts from those actual items of evidence. and those have been stored in freezers, either at OPD or here at our facility.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you can easily access them, and they're still there, and all the evidence is still there, if you will. Okay. Can you talk to me just a little bit about the ultimate goal for this? I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, we want closure for families, justice for victims. How important is that?
It's really important. There's so many cases that, we haven't been able to solve over the years. And I feel like this is just an extra tool that we have now that we can hopefully bring some closure to the families and justice for the victims. All of these unsolved homicides just live in my brain, and I would love to see them be closed.
Sure, and I'm assuming you're very close with some of these cases that you've been investigating. Um, do you happen to know family members from some of these cases that personally perhaps you have some stories you can or are willing to share?
I will say, since we are located at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, we actually are not intimately related with the actual investigation. So I don't have any direct access to the victims' families or suspects or really any of that. My job is just to do the work in the lab.
Okay, sure. Um, and what does that process look like? Again, I know you kind of like took us through it, but do the police reach out to you, or do you reach out to the police, or how does this kind of all get started?
Our lab was opened in 1996, and we have been doing forensic DNA testing ever since for the local community, for the state, for other states. But it's basically started by the officers or attorneys. We can actually do testing for the defense as well, asking us if we'd be willing to help out in their case. They bring us items of evidence. We look for areas on evidence that may contain human DNA that test, and then they will submit knowns from individuals who are involved or may be involved in the cases. We see if there are any matches, and then we may testify if we, find results that are helpful for the case.
Okay, wonderful. Now, Melissa, is there anything else that you think people would be interested in knowing just about this process or the importance of it?
I guess what I would say is that if you are a person who has tested at, let's say, 23andMe or Ancestry.com, what we need is for people to upload their DNA profiles into GEDmatch and then also into GEDmatch Pro. So GEDmatch Pro is one of the databases that we are able to access through law enforcement to be able to try to help solve some of these cases. So the more people we have in the databases, the better chance we have of identifying family members. Generally, the family members are going to be third, fourth, fifth cousins. So you usually don't know your relations that far out anyway. So really, it's just a way to help law enforcement be able to bring closure to these cases.
Okay, wonderful. So you can actually take a hands-on approach as a community member here in Omaha and a community member, it sounds like across the nation really, if you're involved in one of these 7 facilities that are now doing this. But just how technology has grown, it seems.
Exactly.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, so we just heard from Melissa there, and she was joining us to talk a little bit about the Human DNA Identification Lab at UNMC. So really a lot of excitement there, and we'll have more news for you coming right up. But first, before we go, we're going to take a live look outside of our city cam here. Looks like few clouds out there, but traffic, as you can see, flowing smoothly. A quick look at I-680 northbound from the Nebraska Department of Transportation camera. Everything seems to be fine, but a little gray. And of course, we will have more from our meteorologists later tonight, but you want to make sure you stick with us. Our first broadcast of the day is First at 3 with Dave Zavolinsky. Again, I'm Jacqueline Fernandez. Thank you so much for joining me at the Alert Center, and I'll see you later.